Perhaps the most popular type of UFO sightings are when witnesses report seeing orbs. Orbs are generally defined as a spherical body radiating some sort of light, although there's certainly many variations in terms of what people see. It's said that this is the most misidentified type of UFO sighting, since these objects are often seen from a distance, and all too often at night. We must also acknowledge that many of these sightings have natural explanations. Still, though, many orbs are not able to be identified, and intriguingly, many cases involve multiple orbs. Furthermore, often these orbs travel at incredible speeds and shift in the blink of the eye. In today's episode, we will examine a fascinating case from Texas that occurred in the early 1950s. On the evening of August 25th, 1951, four scientists were sitting around drinking tea at the home of geology professor Dr. W. I. Robinson. All the men were professors at Texas Tech and were considered incredibly bright and reputable. The other three men were chemical engineering professor Dr. A. G. Oberg, physics professor Dr. George, and Dr. W. L. Ducker, the head of the petroleum engineering department. Around 9:20 p.m., suddenly a V-shaped formation of 15 to 30 bluish-green lights began passing through the sky. The professors were stunned and looked on in disbelief. The lights would pass over quickly, not allowing the professors to get a long look, but all were in agreement. Something bizarre had truly just occurred. Naturally, they initially began to look for the scientific explanation as to what they saw. The next hour, the professors would discuss what exactly they had seen. The lights were bright, extremely bright, but the professors knew they weren't stars, nor meteors. During this time, they deduced that the lights would come back, and sure enough, an hour later, they reappeared in the sky, although they weren't in any formation as they had been prior. Other credible witnesses would see the objects that night as well. Some 350 miles away, in Albuquerque, New Mexico, an employee of the Atomic Energy Commission's top secret Sandia Corporation was sitting outside with his wife on what they described as a beautiful night. Then, both of them suddenly saw what appeared to be an airplane with bluish lights on the wings. After that night, the professors who saw the lights were adamant to discover what it was exactly. They contacted the Air Force Base to report the incident, but didn't get any sort of answer that explained what it was. So the Texas Tech professors started their own informal investigation. They formed two teams to stake out different areas and communicated with walkie-talkies. In the weeks after their initial August 25th sighting, they and their friends observed the lights 12 more times. They would try and measure the light's angles, its altitude, and speed, but didn't have much luck. Interestingly, they discovered they always traveled from north to south. At this same time, the professors alerted local press, like the Lubbock Avalanche Journal. In the coming days, more Lubbock residents claimed to have seen the orbs in the skies. The residents' accounts matched what the professors had seen. These blue-green lights were witnessed multiple times by hundreds of people. With so many sightings occurring, this drew the attention of Edward Ruppelt. In the 1950s, Ruppelt oversaw Project Blue Book for the U.S. Air Force, a program that monitored and investigated UFO reports. Ruppelt would later say about the professors, if a group had been handpicked to observe a UFO, we couldn't have picked a more technically qualified group of people. As Ruppelt began his formal investigation, he found that not everyone who saw the lights was curious, but many were terrified. Ruppelt points out an interview with a hardened old man from La Mesa. Despite having a tough background, including fighting in several turf wars, both he and his wife were scared when they saw the objects. Many of the other witnesses Ruppelt interviewed would provide hazy details and vague information. The professors recorded the most detailed information. That was with the exception of perhaps the most convincing piece. A photograph of the lights would be taken by a college freshman at Texas Tech. On August 31st, Texas Tech freshman named Carl Hart Jr. was diligently looking through his window in order to snap a photograph of the lights. He had been in bed about a half hour when he saw the lights appear in the north, cross the clear sky, and disappear over his house. He knew that the lights would probably reappear, as he had seen this happen before, so he grabbed his camera and went out in the backyard. After some time, the lights went over the house, and luckily, Hart was able to snap 2 photos. A bit later, they made a third pass, and he got 3 more pictures. With so many accounts, it's evident that people were indeed seeing something. But the question was, what was it exactly? As Ruppelt wrapped up his investigation, his conclusion was that the professors had seen a type of bird called a plover. He noted the city of Lubbock had installed new vapor streetlights in 1951, and Ruppelt believed migrating plovers were reflecting these lights. Some of the witnesses supported this theory too. T.E. Snyder, a local farmer, who on August 31st, 1951, had observed birds flying over a drive-in movie theater, noted the birds' undersides were reflected in the light. Still, not everyone agreed with this theory though. J.C. Cross, the head of Texas Tech's biology department, who was interviewed by Ruppelt, said that the sightings could not have been birds. Grayson Mead, another professor, insisted that they could not have been birds as well. He stated, "These objects were far too large for any bird. I have had enough experience hunting, and I don't know of any bird that could go this fast. We would not be able to hear to have gone as fast as this. To be birds, they would have to have been exceedingly low to disappear quite so quickly." One other skeptic was William Hams, chief photographer for the Lubbock Avalanche Journal. Hams snapped several nighttime photos of birds flying over Lubbock streetlights, but could not duplicate Hart's photos. However, the most convincing opinion that these objects were not birds comes from Ruppelt himself. Ruppelt would admit later that the objects were not plovers. He later wrote that a professor conducted an experiment showing him that the lights could not be birds. Ruppelt went on to say that the anonymous man showed him it was a natural phenomenon. Still, Ruppelt couldn't say how he knew or what it was because he stated it would give away the man's identity. As the years passed, the professors and the town would move on from the bizarre incidents of that summer. The professors refused to give more interviews, and the mystery of the lights went on. Many questions surfaced from this event, including, did Ruppelt know the plover explanation was weak, and did he try to pivot on what it was? If this was a natural phenomenon, why is it not being seen every summer in the town? It seems that a scientific explanation would have surfaced by now, but nothing plausible has stuck. The Lubbock Lights is truly an incredible case, with multiple independent and credible witnesses seeing the objects over a series of days. Maybe one day these lights will reappear, but until then, this event remains a mystery.